never heard or read. As we're wrapping up, we're wrapping up with what I call some of the obscure proverbs, just these word picture proverbs that are just very visual, that they're just great to study as a group, and they're going to come from all different types of sections. But before we get started with that, I thought I'd give you an opportunity for a payback. For 23 weeks, I've been throwing riddles at you. So I said, okay, fine. For the last week, we'll see if anybody has some for me. Yo.
It's not fair. You had all week to plan on yours to pass.
Come on. As long as you've known me, do you think I've really planned for a week what riddle I was going to put up?
No. She's got one.
I know, that's Jessica.
How does the dinosaur get out of the bathtub?
Yeah, that's right.
So he doesn't slip his horse?
No, how does he?
Oh, how does he? Oh, I don't know.
Oh, when?
Oh, that's very
You can
good.
tell she's in elementary.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do one for NCIS.
Okay.
Man walks into a bar, asks for a glass of water. The bartender pulls out a shotgun, shoots it, barely misses him. The guy puts the tip on the bar, walks away, says thank you.
He asked for a shot. What?
That's good.
He had the hiccups.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay.
I told you earlier, what's going to be the only man-made thing when we get to heaven?
The only man-made thing in heaven. I remember you did tell me, but I can't remember the
I
answer.
remember, so but I heard it from you.
Anybody? Toothbrush. What does it feel?
The scars on the hands of Jesus.
There you go. It just got deep. Yeah. But that's, one of the reasons we did the riddles, in case you missed the first class we did, was because in order to get a riddle, your brain kind of has to twist in a certain direction to see the connotations of the words and whatnot, to get the image. For example, if you hit me, I will crack, but you can't stop me from looking back. A mirror. Yeah, your brain kind of has to go there. If you tap me, I can crack, but you can't stop me from looking back. It's a mirror. And it's your brain has to go there to grasp the riddle. And it's the same thing with a proverb. To get a picture of a proverb, your brain kind of has to go there to look at the world from either the author, if you know who the author was, or every civilization that has ever existed has proverbs. I'm sure that if I were to ask you, what's a Hispanic proverb off the top of your head? Okay.
I feel like a chicken in a strange corral.
Okay. I like. Okay. Well, it's like Benjamin Franklin. Fish and guests stink after 3 days. Mark Twain. Politicians in diapers should be changed often and for the same reason. You get it. You can grasp it, but your brain has to go there. And it's the same thing with these obscure proverbs, more so than some of the other ones we've covered. Some proverbs are very exact. Other ones have a picture that you kind of have to use your imagination to grasp the punchline, so to speak. For example, tonight we're starting in Proverbs 20, verse 14. Now, before we read this one, just to save time, I want you to picture yourself going to a polka. A polka. Yeah. Sorry. Polka. I said that this morning. Someone said, I didn't know you danced. Thought I said polka. Yeah. You're going to the polka. Yeah. You're going to the flea market. Polka. 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 3 times this gospel. Okay. Picture you're going to the polka. All right. Now, have you experienced this or done it yourself? It's no good, says the buyer, then goes off and boasts about the purchase. Who here enjoys the haggling over a price when you go shopping?
Really bragging?
No, not bragging. Now, you would call it negotiating. Haggling over a price. But that's what this is talking about. I remember the first time I went to Mexico. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I grew up going to malls and going to stores in a big city. Whereas if they post a price, that is the price you pay. Lo and behold, the first mission trip, I come down here. They take us to Matamoros, and we go shopping. And so I said, how much is this? And they quote me a price. And so I try to pay it, and they just kind of look at me weird because they were expecting me to haggle. I don't know how to haggle. I don't like haggling. But that's part of the culture. When we lived in New Mexico had a vast garage sale culture. Yeah, you heard me right. A garage sale culture. Because you could post your garage sale in the local paper. What the local paper was called in Deming, New Mexico? Now, you have to say it fast to get the joke, but it's the Deming Headlight. It'll hit you in a minute. But yeah, that was the name of the paper. You can post your garage sale in there, and if you say your garage sale starts at 7, they're at your door at 6:30. With newspaper in hand, one guy actually had the coin thing on the belt. So he could, because this was after our kids were toddlers, and we had no plans of having any more children. And we're getting rid of the baby stuff. We're selling the onesies and everything, for like $0.25 a piece. People don't want to spend $0.25. They haggle over everything. And for some people, it's in fact it's a lifestyle. Modern days, have you seen the coupon collecting cult? And websites, these people are so hardcore, they can go to a store. No joke, I'm not making this up. Stores will actually pay them money because of the coupons they have. They undersell what they got. And a television mystery show that we enjoy called Bones actually had a murder centered around a coupon cutting club. It's notorious, and people, they want it. Why? Because you're there and you're trying to haggle. You say, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. Why? So they'll cut the price. But if you can get that price lowered, you go out and what do you say? Look at what I got, what a great deal I have. That's what that. So the question is, why make it a proverb? What's the lesson for us then? What's the point of it?
To raise the price, and that way they haggle it.
That could be one. That's the idea of working it. It's the idea. It takes effort to haggle. It takes effort to negotiate. And it's like, try. You never know what you might get. Now, we're going to combine a couple. Proverbs 21:19 and Proverbs 27:15 through 16. Better to live in the desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife. A quarrelsome wife is like the dripping of the leaky roof in a rainstorm. Restraining her is like restraining the wind or grasping oil with the hand. Now, guys, be sure to separate from your wives before you answer any thought. Now, is the Bible picking on the women? Oh, it seems like. What's going on? What is going on here?
Yes.
What's the point?
The point is not the gender, it's the nagging and the quarrelsome part.
It's yes. Think before you get married. Yes. Well, it's also think before you get married. Think before you propose. Look at it this way. Even to this day, if you throw out the idea of she should propose to him, how does that hit you mentally?
Backwards.
Why?
Culture.
The culture. Same thing back then. Women weren't going around getting them a husband. Husbands were going around getting them a wife. So that's how come these things are more focused on husband and wife in that way, because it's the husband going out and getting a wife. But it applies to both. Because a woman doesn't do herself any favors. With this day in our culture, a woman does have a right to say no easier than they did. But a woman doesn't do herself any favors if she gets herself involved with a quarrelsome and argumentative man. Right? So, it does work both ways, but dealing with the culture of the time, that's why they're directed this way. Okay, so that being said, in a marriage situation, why is it not good to hook yourself up with someone who is quarrelsome and nagging? In fact, there are 4 proverbs like this in here, and they're all centered around 2021, I believe. And they, I got 2 of them because the other ones are very similar. It's the ones that talk about how better a house with a quarrelsome wife. So it's better to sleep on the corner of your roof. It's better to live in the wilderness. You might as well be trying to restrain wind and grab oil. What are we supposed to be learning about hooking yourself up with somebody who is quarrelsome and argumentative and nagging? Also, contemptuous is in those other proverbs. Into what?
Sin.
Okay, could provoke you to sin. Yeah. What else?
Take away your
What is home supposed to be? If you work all day, even if you love your job, there are some days in which your job stinks, right? So what should be the feeling of, I get to clock out, I get to leave and go home?
Is the word refuge?
Okay, refuge, what was that?
He said castle.
Okay, castle.
Home is your safe zone.
Your safe zone, yes, Will?
Your man cave.
Your man cave. Or your she shed. It's a place of rest. It's supposed to be a place of peace, a place to rejuvenate. I now get to leave all you knuckleheads behind, and I go home to where I have the people I love the most in this life. It should be a joy to go home, right? It should be, right? Oh, what was that, Phil?
Did you call us knuckleheads?
He was talking about
Yes.
Charlie.
Don't find words.
All right, Will. But that's the thing. Home is peace, or home should be peace, and we should seek to have home as peace. My home, I have to maintain a certain level of peace at home just so I can heal before I go back out there the next day. Now, imagine, again, regardless if you like your job, don't like your job, but you had a hard day, and you have a very, very hard, very, very stressful day. Now you get to leave this place and go home where your spouse is naggy, argumentative, and contemptuous. So you get no peace at work, and you get no peace at home. How long before you crack?
Some sooner than later.
Right. If you're not married in this room, and you're looking to be married one day, find somebody, on top of all of the qualities they have, they're able to help you find peace and help you to maintain a level of peace. That's one of the ways we get through this life. Question and comment on that before we shove on?
I think in regards to relationships, there's only a couple things that the Bible really talks about. And, Proverbs mentions a lot of the negative things. Hey, watch out for this.
Mm-hmm.
It also says the positives, like what a good spouse does look like.
Yes.
And I think when people, young people or whoever is looking to be in a relationship, they really need to focus on these things that the scriptures say, because it's not many to look at, but yet I think they cover all the basics of a good relationship.
I think it's in Proverbs that it talks about, it's either Proverbs or Psalms, but I think it's Proverbs, that it says, whoever finds a wife finds what is good. Yeah. So it is good. It says in Genesis, it is not good for man to be alone. Everything in Genesis was perfect, except the fact that the man had no one. The man did not look at the platypus and find it attractive. All right? It just did not work that way. Man had no one. And God said, this is not good. The world, the perfection of the world was not complete until God created woman. And so he who finds a wife finds what is good. But be
She's
sure,
not nagging.
again, but be sure she's a good one. Here's a great visual. Proverbs 26:8, like tying a stone in a sling is the giving of honor to a fool. Now, let me say, why are you laughing? Because this is hilarious. Okay, here we go. David and Goliath, all right? How did David kill Goliath? Okay, with a sling. Okay, how does a sling work? It's not a slingshot, it's a leather strap, right? With a pouch in the middle of it. You put a rock in that pouch and you fold it over and you sling it, around. You let go of one end, and that causes the pouch to open up, stone to go out and strike. In this case, strike Goliath in the head, knock him out, and then David's able to go over there and decapitate him. Okay, now, what would happen if while David was getting his stuff ready, somebody sneaked behind him and tied the rock to the sling? Let go, boom, knocks himself out. That's the image. Someone who has tied a rock to a sling. That sucker's not going nowhere, but the momentum is going to carry it to hurt the person who's holding the sling. So, okay. That is like giving honor to a fool. Okay, what does that mean? What can be so hard, or what can be so bad about giving honor to a fool?
It will encourage their foolishness.
Okay, that's one. Which can lead to big problems. Again, what happens to the person who's holding on to a sling with a rock tied to it? They hurt themselves.
Sabotage?
Yes, they can, not someone sabotaging them sabotaging themselves. Have you ever known anybody that they start talking to somebody important and you just start praying to yourself, oh, please let this be short. Please let this be short. Please let this be short. Please get them to shut their mouths. Please, 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 please. Because you know that the longer this progresses, there is the greater chance they're going to shoot themselves in the foot with their own mouth. Kids are great at this. Your child is talking to an adult, someone important at work or somebody important in the church or whatever, and your child has the ability to be very, very direct and honest. And they don't mean to. They're young. They're learning. Like when my kids were toddlers, we went to a local restaurant, and they'd never seen somebody with Down syndrome before. And my little 2-year-old daughter says, full voice, "What's wrong with them?" We'll talk later, but they don't know. But that's a child. They don't know. They're learning. But what happens if that same behavior is in an adult? Yeah. No, I don't think there's anything wrong with them either. But the idea of them just, the fool, again, someone who can't control themselves, somebody who doesn't watch what they say, someone who doesn't care if they're offensive or not offensive, someone who doesn't care to be wise or even try to be wise, somebody again, you just let them talk, and pretty soon they hurt themselves. That's the point of this. The giving of honor to a fool. Just let them talk. Someone's foolish, let them talk. Let them talk and see what kind of trouble they get themselves in.
We've given honor to a lot of fools in this country.
Yes.
And, it really has hurt Christianity in certain ways.
Yes.
That's sad deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
A lot of people wouldn't call them fools, but
No.
they really are.
Yeah. But just that, again, you just let them talk, and again, you don't have to. It's like, how hard is it to let somebody else have the last word? Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe we have our own self-will.
Why do we think that us getting the last word is going to be the big benefit? We're jumping ahead to another proverb, but it's kind of like this. See, this is like letting the fool talk. Well, okay, fine, talk, because again, let them go, they'll end up hurting themselves. That's the power of words. Kind of in the same vein was the very next verse, 26:9. Get this imagery. Like a thorn bush in a drunkard's hand is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. Now, my kids are New Mexicans, and so we lived in a place where you had sand blowing across the street at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and tumbleweeds going down the street too, where I have had the theme of the good, the bad, and the ugly playing in my head because I saw a desert scene with tumbleweeds going down the street, and so that's what I picture when I picture this thing. A big old weed, right? But look at what it's saying. Thorn bush in a drunkard's hand. Now, what's so bad about a thorn bush being in a drunkard's hand? What's going on here? What can happen? What's happening? Okay, there's pain. And also, what else? There's no telling what he's going to do with it. What else? If he's entangled, then it's on him. He's tangled up in it. He can't. These days, we might say he's tangled up in barbed wire. You get tangled up in there, and you can't get out without getting the pliers out. All right. So that's okay. So that's your image. But then it says, "This is what it's like for there to be a proverb in the mouth of a fool." What's so bad about a proverb being in the mouth of a fool? And what is it doing? Or what does it have the capacity to do to the fool?
It gives it no credibility.
Okay. Again, just
I won't even use it in the right situation.
I too like to use big words when I want to sound more photosynthesis. Exactly. I mean, that's that thing. You try to use big words, but you use big words wrong. All right. You try to use a proverb, but you end up using a proverb wrong. We had a proverb when we dealt with the mouth that talked about better to keep silent. Because as long as we're silent, do what?
Then to open your mouth and remove all that.
That's right. It's better to keep silent and let people think about you what you will. Because as soon as you open your mouth and say something wrong, use a word wrong, use a proverb wrong, try to use wisdom and teaching wrong, and everybody knows, you're out of there, Jack. Well, there was like a video of a politician who was trying to converse with a military leader. And the question he asked, I'm trying to remember what it was something along the lines of, is there a danger, sir, that if everybody gets on one end of the island of Guam, that the entire island will tip over? No, that didn't go well. No. But it's that kind of stuff. We got to watch ourselves because like that drunkard that's tangled up in the weed bush, we hurt ourselves and we can't get out of it. That's the danger. Remember what Proverbs teaches us. What's the path to wisdom? Get wisdom. And if you can, get understanding. Because if we don't, we can hurt ourselves. Here's one for us dog lovers. Proverbs 26:17. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. Man, that's great. Randy, you got some strays around your house, don't you? You want to go yank some ears?
No, I do it ballistically.
Okay. I don't know if he gets a BB gun, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is great. Look at how Satan's working in the world right now. And now, this has always been a problem. It's just social media has elevated this problem. What has social media done? Everybody's in everybody else's business. Does everybody need to be in everybody else's business? No, they don't. But because of technology we have today, people are able to get in other people's business. And lo and behold, most of the time it's invited because people post stuff and you're off to the races. Get that? And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but guess what? Everything that happens to us does not have to be posted. All right? Now, but when you go rushing in, or when I go rushing into a conflict that I'm not invited to, have you ever received unwanted advice? What does that do? There's a feeling that goes along with that. What's that feeling like when you're the recipient of unwanted advice? What's that like?
I say thank you, and I don't follow the advice.
Yeah, you don't follow, but you kind of get that. You get that. Who are you? Why are you here?
It's one of those things that stays with you all day.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't good. It wasn't what you wanted. And then it messes up the whole day.
Right.
It can't.
It's like John 9, when Jesus is talking to the blind man who just got chunked out of the synagogue, and he's talking about spiritual blindness, and he's identified himself as Jesus, and he talks about, well, I'm the one who healed you. They're spiritually blind. And then the Pharisees it doesn't say where they are, always picture from across the street. From across the street, the Pharisee says, "You're not calling us blind, are you?" It's like, are you even in this conversation? I'm talking to this guy. Who are you? Why are you here? It's that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been to the Alaniz house. The Alanises have mastiffs. Now, if you don't know what mastiffs are, they have a dog that stands flat-footed about to here. Head like this. His name's Hercules. Now, thankfully, Hercules loves me. And I love Hercules because big things need love too. But I wouldn't go up to my friend Hercules that weighs about 150 at least pounds and just go yanking on his ears. Because Hercules would eat me. But that's what it is to go button our noses into other people's business when we're not invited.
But some posts on Facebook can be helpful.
Yeah.
Like I found some dogs and they wandered into my yard today and I took their picture and put it on Facebook and they're now back.
Oh yeah, no, that's great.
It can be good,
Oh, social media can be good, but
other kinds of things.
yeah, but what's the natural? What has been? Now Facebook is over 10 years old. What do you think is in? What do you think? If you were to weigh those scales between the good of social media versus the bad of social media, which end do you think is bigger? Yeah, because it's easy. It's easy. People are brave behind the screen. It's like the Ku Klux Klan in masks. People are brave and Antifa. Why do you think Antifa and the Klan wear masks? Because it's easy to be brave behind a mask. It's easy to be brave when people don't know who you are. It's easy to be brave behind a screen. But we're just yanking dogs by the ears, and it's going to end up hurting us. Now, check this out. In Proverbs 26, verse 18, it says, like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbors and says, I was only joking. Now, for our purposes of modern times, take out shooting flaming arrows and put in shooting a gun. And look at, because it is the same thing. Now, I had a friend. Did you have a friend like this or somebody you knew like this? I had a friend from the time I was in elementary school through college. That was his thing, was that he was very witty. He was more witty than I was, and he could be sarcastic, and he was a wordsmith, and he could cut somebody to the bone with his words. And if people did take him too seriously, that's what, I was only joking. I was only joking. Like, and then when first time I was studying Proverbs, I came across this proverb and I was like, whoa, because that's exactly what it says. Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. Is this hyperbole? Is this overstating? Or is the comparison okay?
No, Trump did that today. I don't know if y'all heard, he's trying to build more walls. He's trying to do it real aggressively. And he said supposedly that if y'all break the law, don't worry about it, I'll give you a pardon. And then later he says, I was just joking.
Yeah. I mean, politicians do it. People do it. Comedians do it. Everybody does it. What's the problem? What's the danger? Why liken it to a crazy person shooting flaming arrows, causing harm and death? But they were joking.
To the recipient, it doesn't feel like a joke.
Oh.
The one that got it wasn't.
Do what?
To the one that received it wasn't.
No.
And I really don't think most of the time, my concept of joking, because I think people are trying to
What's the problem with the phrase, I was only joking?
They weren't.
Okay, that's one, is they weren't. Okay, that's one. What else is here?
Well, it makes you feel crazy because you just got hurt and then the person saying, "I want this kid."
Okay, and absolutely right. Now, what's the comparison between saying two people come to you who both caused you harm? One says, I was only joking. The other one says, I am truly, truly sorry. Now, what's the difference? Okay, humility is one. What else is there? Yeah. I was only, hey, we have a way that people do it today. My bad. I've tried to teach my kids, I can't stand the phrase, my bad. Because my bad is just like, I was only joking. Because I was only joking and my bad, it shows that I did something. Because it is my bad. And I was only joking. But am I sorry for it? Not necessarily. What these phrases do is allow us to admit a wrong without being sorry for a wrong. Does that make sense? And what's the danger of it? Well, I don't have to be sorry at all. And you have to deal with it. Because, you look at the person who's shooting the firing arrows, you look at the person who's shooting the gun. There is a weapon, but there's a person holding the weapon. And behind the person holding the weapon is the intent. And the intent is everything.
And even if people go as far as to say, I take full responsibility for whatever, but they don't do anything other than say that, then they haven't taken any responsibility whatsoever.
Right.
If they go further and take steps to make amends, somehow, then okay. But just to stand up and say, well, I take full responsibility for that. And then they go off just exactly as they were before. Well, that's a lie.
Yeah.
They didn't take responsibility at all.
The damage has been done. I don't think it's biblical. I think it's just another one of those proverbs because it has a gun in it. So I don't think it's from the Bible. But it says, just like a bullet, once you shoot a bullet, it's too late. Once you throw a rock, it's too late. Once you, a shot bullet can't come back. A thrown rock can't come back. There was another one. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube, and you can't unsay words. Once it's out, it's out. You can't bring it back. So, if we do cause harm, what are we going to do about it? I was only joking. No. Was I? They have a term for that. It's called the Freudian slip. You ever heard of that one? Psychological term. Freudian slip. It's when you accidentally say something that was really going on in your brain, but you say, "Oh, I didn't mean to say that." Those moments. Freud said, well, you actually did mean to say that because that was really what was going on in your heart. And you just said it before you could stop yourself. But you try to cover over with, I was only joking, or I didn't mean to say that. Or pardon my French, or some other thing. Which, being a French American, that's mean. All right. In Proverbs 26, verse 20, this is another good one for our day and time. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. What causes fights to continue? Okay. If you remember schoolhouse fights? Schoolhouse fights. Okay, you got two people in a center of, we'll call it a ring. Now, we call it a ring because what's surrounding the two people in the center? All the kids in the school. And what are the people surrounding, what are the other people in the school doing to these two poor guys in the middle?
Oh, y'all need to stop.
Oh yeah, right. What school did you go to? Egging them on. They're egging them on because what would happen if there was nobody around to egg them on? They would be. You're such a teacher. They'd be on time to class. the kids lose their entertainment. Now that's very important because that is what's happening. When those kids duke it out, who's going to be in trouble? Those two kids. But who's encouraging those kids to continue on? Everybody else there. And what would happen if they didn't have those other kids there? Chances are they drop it.
That way.
It would die away. But what continues the strife?
Peer pressure. Encouragement.
The words, the egging on, the gossip. Fire. You know, a fire does not, you know, when fires die out, it's due to some, you know, rain, water, they're able to make the fire line and whatever. But have you ever seen a wildfire just say, you know what, I think I've done enough, so I'm just going to just stop right here. As long as there's fuel to burn, the fire will keep going. Just as long as there are words to really get under our skin, the people will continue to have strife. We were talking about this earlier. How hard is it to let other people have the last word? Because fights and arguments and fist fights are built on speed of thought, speed of words, trying to get that last word in, trying to overtop somebody else, make somebody else more angry. But imagine if we were just had the humility to just stop and not have to have the last word and not have to lash out. And that's hard. I mean, you look at Jesus when he was in front of the Jewish courts, he said nothing. They still beat on him and they still killed him, but he didn't egg them on. Peter would talk about, let people hate you, but don't give them a reason to. Let them look foolish because they choose to hate you. Don't egg on to their hatred. If they have a hateful word, let them have it. Let them have the last one. Don't feed into it. Don't rise up. Don't give them bait to come back with. Leave it. And a lot of this stuff can fade away. Again, go back to social media. Imagine what would happen if people didn't retort ugly to everybody's post. Be a whole lot more peaceful households out there than there are now.
And this gossip, that's not so much egging on the two that are fighting, but spreading it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to...
And on and on and on. And then lo and behold, you have a Hatfield and McCoy situation where people have been arguing and fighting for generations and they don't know why.
Or even talking like about your own individual between you and somebody else, talking about that to somebody else or whatever. It just gets you more worked up.
Yeah.
And then you just bring away.
And the thing is that we can't be people. We can't be people who think that I'll be good to the world once the world is good to me. You know, I will act in godly ways as long as the world doesn't provoke me to behave sinfully. Well, Buttercup, we're going to be in for a long wait because the world will not sit back and just allow us to be good. It is going to try to push us. It's going to try to try us. It's going to try to get us to do evil. And the decisions that we have to make is, am I going to allow the world to dictate to me how I am going to react to something? They might call us cowards. They might call us chicken. They might call us yellow. They might call us pollo. What's that?
They won't call you pollo.
Oh.
You're going to be eaten.
Oil is something else.
Oh.
At the end of the chicken.
But they might call you all sorts of stuff. They might try to provoke you. They might try to get a rise out of you. But are we going to let them do it? Because if we do, that's us putting wood onto the fire. But if we don't add to it, their wood will die away sooner or later. It will. But I'm not going to add to it.
It's okay if we punch him in the nose and say, I was just kidding.
Yeah, I slipped. But that's the thing is there's tons of evil going on in the world. Individually, are we going to add to it? Proverbs 30 on the back of the page. Proverbs 30 has a lot of great proverbs, and they're like what you might call story proverbs. They're like lists. You know, where there's like a single thought then followed by like 4 examples of what's going on here. And they're just really great. In Proverbs 30, verse 15, it says, "The leech has 2 daughters. Give, give, they cry. There are 3 things that are never satisfied, 4 that never say enough. The grave, the barren womb, land, which is never satisfied with water, and fire, which never says enough." Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, let's start with leeches. Why not? They're fun. Okay, what do leeches do? They're bloodsuckers. And when do they stop?
They don't until they get their fill.
Until they get the fill. Or sometimes you get a particularly greedy one and they'll burst on you. And that's, fun to... Who hasn't had dinner yet? But hey, leeches used to be part of medieval medicine. And even stuff for like, I remember I was reading a book once, 2 guys get into a fight, one of them gets punched in the eye starts to swell. They put a leech like right underneath there to suck out the excess blood so that the swelling goes down.
It's still being used. Helen Medical, patient lost a finger, and then we attached it.
Really?
So the blood.
Start to draw the blood into it.
The 1800s, 1700s, they put leeches all over. They had bad blood.
Yeah.
They thought that's the way to get it out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what. So they go until, and again, if they're bursting, what does that mean? That means they're going until they don't say enough. They said they have 2 daughters and they say, give, give. They keep going. So what are things in this world that are never satisfied? Death. Again, if that's something, I think funerals go against the law of supply and demand. It's like, we're all dying. Why do funerals cost so much? But death is one. Taxes. Yeah. The barren womb. The woman who's not able to have children in a society of which a woman, her womanhood was seen in how many children she can have. And so if a woman is barren, think about Abraham's wife. Think about Samuel's mother. These examples of women who were not able to have children, and they felt their lives were miserable, or they were looked down by other people just because they weren't able to have kids. So the barren womb, land which is never satisfied with water. You throw water out onto a desert landscape, guess what? It's going to drink it up. It can drink up everything. Fire, again, as we talked about earlier, when does the fire stop? The fire doesn't stop until there's no more fuel to burn. So, it always says enough. These things that are never satisfied. And guess what? All these things are destructive. They cause heartache. They cause harm. Are we going to be people who are never satisfied? Right now.
Until we accept Christ.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the American culture is a very greedy culture. Okay, we say, there is no enough. We want more and more and more and more and more. We're never satisfied. Just like all this stuff, all this harmful stuff. Yes, Will.
One thing I can say with the daughters, they're sure ugly.
Mm-hmm. In Proverbs 30, verse 18 and 19, it says, "There are 3 things that are too amazing for me." Here we go. Listen on a couple of good ones. "There are 3 things that are too amazing for me, 4 that I do not understand." And this is, I do not understand in a good way. That it causes awe. "The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a snake on a rock, the way of a ship on the high seas, and the way of a man with a young woman." So what are things that cause awe? In this very busy life that is full of heartache, it's full of darkness, it's full of annoying people, it's full of foolishness, it's full of all this junk. Do we have the ability to just stop and notice something beautiful?
Not a snake on a rock.
I mean, these people, we say it this way: stop and smell the roses.
Okay, that.
It's that same type of mentality. It's like when we go to the island. Every time I go to an island, there's always some giant boat out in the bay, and I look for it because I love seeing it. I never get to see boats like that. I didn't grow up down here. So when I go out, I look and see if I can see one. And I always do. And it is. If you're an older couple, or if you're maybe not even an older couple, but you've been married now for a while, and you look down the street and you see a new young couple, and that stops and gives you pause and makes you reflect over the life that you've had with your spouse. It's something that's sweet to see. An eagle in the sky, just this big birds that just can soar and just go, and they look majestic. Something else. When we lived in New Mexico, desert situations, desert lands have the prettiest sunrises and sunsets. Because I think it's because there's no humidity or anything that mists that covers up the view. It's very clear. So I remember seeing the sunsets, and it would have the burnt orange around the sun, and then it fades off to the lighter oranges and yellows, and then to the blues and indigos, and then to the blacks, and you start seeing the stars come in, because we're not in the middle of a giant city, so you can actually see stars and all this, and you just stop, and you're just like, my God, that is beautiful. Don't become so frustrated with life that we can't take a moment of joy out of God's creation. We also who in here loves the underdog? Yeah, underdog story. Yeah, okay, this is what this last one's about. It's about the underdog. It says, under 3 things the earth trembles, unto 4 it cannot bear up. And again, this is cannot bear up in a good way. Okay? A servant who becomes a king, a godless fool who gets plenty to eat, a contemptible woman who gets married, and a servant who displaces her mistress. These are all underdog stories. The servant who becomes king. Biblically speaking, who can you think of? David is one, but there's another one. Young man by the name of Joseph. Went from the servants of the household, went from prisoner to being the second in command of Egypt. David's another one. Esther is another one. A lowly Jewish woman who comes out to be the queen. And so these are great stories. And we love Joseph, we love David, we love Esther. We love hearing these stories. The godless fool who gets plenty to eat. Now again, we had a whole class, a couple of weeks, dealing with the fool. And one of the things of the fool is that the fool is lazy, or the fool doesn't take care of himself. The fool goes around thinking they know everything, but they've built nothing. And so the idea that someone started off life with a fool, and then later in life got their acts together and got to work and was able to make something of themselves. And we might call these the American dream type stories. Somebody who starts off with nothing and ends up owning their own company, or being able to take care of themselves and their family, being able to rise up out of their past and become more. We love stories like that. The contemptible woman who gets married. That woman we were talking about, who's argumentative, nagging, and whatnot. She's like that before she got married. But what we would say is, in Shakespeare, they had the taming of the shrew. But, it's the idea of the woman that and you're like, goodness sakes, that woman's going to be alone all of her life for no other reason than her attitude. She's just a miserable human being. But again, later in life, she got her act together and she got herself a good man. And she's able to be a good wife. For example, Hosea and Gomer, out of the book of Hosea. And we applaud that. And then the servant who displaces her mistress. The one who's able to rise up above someone. You see this maybe in the work situation. You are the underling of some office guy who's a jerk. He's the type of person who always tries to take credit for everybody else's work and all this kind of stuff, does what they can to cover themselves, and doesn't matter who they have to climb over in order to climb the corporate ladder. Is this ringing any bells? But then, lo and behold, something happens in which they pass over him and elevate you. And now he works for you. It's these types of stories that are great. And guess what? It's like the earth trembles. The earth can't bear it up. The earth is in awe when these things happen. When the underdog wins. The heavens rejoice. So, in a 23-week nutshell, that's the book of Proverbs. Yeah, I think I was the only one who's counting, but yeah. Yes,
I
Joe.
have a question.
Go ahead.
You gave 3 examples here, but it happens a number of times in Proverbs where he starts with the number and then changes it immediately. Like,
Yeah.
there are 3 things that never sound like 4. So why not just start with 4? I mean,
Poetic.
oh,
It was a style of writing, and another good place to see that very thing is the book of Amos. Oh!
One more question.
One more question, yeah, but it was a style of writing that they had back then, and it's poetry. You know, for example, in Amos, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not rebuke the punishment. So it's that same thing. And it's like, I've seen 3, but it's more than 3. In fact, it's 4. You know, so Nate, I don't know. So that's what that's for. It's just for poetic emphasis. Sounds pretty.
Because it happens a number of places.
Yeah. It's to make it sound pretty. Anybody else? Like I said, I hope you enjoyed Proverbs. You know, I hope this has inspired us to go out and to seek wisdom, because that was the whole point of it, to be able to seek wisdom, to seek to be better than what we are, to grow and mature and become more than what we are today. Because as long as there's life, it is not too late to seek the wisdom of God. So, at this time, we'd like to go over our prayer requests. We've had a couple of new ones since Sunday. The Cozarts one is to remember Orville and Maggie Gibson. Maggie has cancer, and Orville he's a truck driver, but he's had to be off the road in order to take care of his wife Maggie. And you know, that's the thing with truck drivers, is if they're not rolling, they're not getting paid. So he's trying to do what he can to take care of her. So we need to remember this family. Also, I've had an update from Kathy Mills. Mike's going to have his LVAD surgery next Tuesday on September 3rd. And so we need to continue to pray for them. Also, a reminder, Bros is this coming up Tuesday on the 3rd at Marcos Burgers in Mission at 6:30. So we need to remember that. Is there anything else that we need to announce? Yes, ma'am. Say, Brianna, you still pregnant, huh? You think you're going to make the end of September? Bobby, we hope Build a Burger's okay. Y'all do good stuff. I say, y'all still going? They still building the building? Right. Cool. Yes, Miss Jessica. Mommy of Lori's last name. Bogart.
And this will be their second child. Extra prayers for her and that. And then also Laurel Vargas, his other sister, she is pregnant and due in December.
What's her name again?
Laurel.
Okay, I don't know how to do Laurel.
Laurel, probably.
Okay, Laura, what's her last name?
Vargas?
This is your other sister Truett?
Yeah, both It's just really hard for Lori. I mean, for obvious reasons.
Anybody? Yeah. Yes.
My brother-in-law in Alabama,
Name?
Embry.
How do you spell? Ambry. Okay.
Having health issues. Some of them are pretty bad.
Okay. Gus, did you have a hand? Oh, okay. Yes, no. Okay. Oh, in Seattle. And he said he had an interview with who? Oh, okay. Is he excited about this possibility? Mama excited about these possibilities? Yeah. I just knew you did.
Yeah,
Which one? Michelle's birthday. How old is it? No, I'm about to say that's the naughty question. I'm about to say she's still young enough that's not offensive. So she's 22. Oh, preaching? Yeah, I know. Gus is going. Well, Gus is preaching October 13th. So bring your tomatoes. No. Gus, bring a rain jacket. Okay. If there is nothing else, next week we'll be starting a class on the book of Hebrews. And so we hope that you come to that. If it's been a while, read the first couple of chapters. We'll probably do an introduction next week and then take off from there. So that's what's going to be on tap for that. So if you will, join me in prayer and we'll be dismissed. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you blessed us with, and we thank you for bringing us here together. We ask that you be with those who have asked for our prayers tonight, and that your will may work in their lives, and be with those who are hurting, be with those who are traveling, be with those who are struggling, and be with those who are looking to start the next phase of life. We ask that you work your will in all their situations. We thank you for this family. We thank you for the North Mission family, and for us being able to come together and to encourage each other on, to help each other to be better. And we pray that we may pursue your wisdom. Guide us in your ways. In Jesus' name, amen.